In this video, we're going to talk about integer addition. And the rules for integer addition are going to fall into one of two categories. So either we're adding two integers that have the same sign. So either they're both positive or they're both negative. So one case is that the integers have the same sign. And the other case is that the integers have different signs. And again, just like I said on all the decimal problems, that you can absolutely just stick this in your calculator. Same thing goes here. You can actually just stick all these in your calculator. You don't have to add them by hand, but in case you want to add them by hand. But again, if I was doing a problem and the addition was just one part of the problem, I would usually probably just stick it in my calculator. So don't be afraid to use the calculator. Okay, so we have our two cases. So the integers, either they have the same sign or they have different signs. And so let's look at an example for each one of them. So integers that have the same sign. So basically something like, say, -3 plus -4. So the first thing that we're going to do on this case is we're going to ignore the signs and add the two numbers. So in this case, if I ignore the signs, the first one would just be 3, and the second number would just be 4, and I'm going to add 3 and 4 together to get 7. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look at the bigger number and take the sign of the bigger number. So if I look here, -3 is bigger than -4, right? -3 was negative, so my final answer is going to be -7. So if you have two numbers, they have the same sign, so they're both negative or they're both positive, but adding two positive numbers is what people have been doing their whole life, so usually that's not the problem. So two negative numbers, and you're adding them together. We're going to ignore the signs and add the two numbers, and then we're going to look at the bigger number and take the sign of the bigger. In this case, both the bigger number and the smaller number have the same sign, and that's okay. I write the step this way: look at the bigger number and take the sign of the bigger number, because then it's the same in both case 1 and case 2 over here. So over here, let's say that I was trying to add -3 plus a +4 this time. So again, we're going to ignore the signs, but we're going to this time, instead of add the two numbers together, we're going to subtract the bigger number minus the smaller number. So my two numbers here would be 3 and 4. So 4 is bigger, so I'm going to do 4 minus 3, and so 4 minus 3 is 1. And now, just like before, we're going to look at the bigger number and take the sign of the bigger number. So in this case, right, the bigger number between -3 and 4, right, 4 is that bigger here, 4 is that bigger number here, and that's why I did here too, the bigger number 4, right, so 4 was bigger, 4 was positive, so my answer is going to be +1. So let's do a couple more examples here. So what about -6 plus -2? So they're both negative. So I'm going to ignore the signs and add them together. So 6 plus 2 is 8. And then I'm going to look. 6 is the bigger number. 6 was originally negative. So my answer is going to be negative 8. Here's another one. What about negative 11 plus 2? So again, this time I'm going to look. I have a negative number. I have a positive number. So in this case, we're going to do that subtraction. So my numbers are 11 and 2. So we're going to do 11 minus 2, the bigger minus the smaller, and that is 9. And then if I look, 11 is the bigger number here. 11 was negative, so my answer is going to be negative 9. Here's another example about negative 6 plus 6. So again, the two numbers are opposite each other. So we're going to look at 6 and 6. Here, we're going to subtract them. So 6 minus 6 gives us 0. And 0 isn't really positive. We don't put a positive sign or a negative sign with 0, so the answer is just 0. And let's see, we'll do a couple more. So what about a negative 4 plus a negative 12? So both numbers are negative. So we're going to look at 4 plus 12. 4 plus 12 is 16. 12 was the bigger number here. 12 was negative in the original problem. So my answer is going to be negative 16. I'll do two more. What about 3 plus 7? So that one's kind of easy, right? They're both positive. 3 plus 7 we know is 10. And we'll do one more here. So what about 5 plus negative 8? So again, we look at 5 and 8 because they're opposite. One is positive and one is negative. We'll subtract. So I'm always going to do 8 minus 5. So the bigger number minus the smaller number, which will give me 3. And then I'm going to look. So 8 was the bigger number. 8 was negative to begin with. So my answer is going to be negative 3. And we'll do one last one here. So if I had, say, 12 plus negative 7. So again, one is positive, one is negative. So we're going to do 12 and 7. The bigger minus the smaller, so 12 minus 7 is 5. And then we're going to look. So here was 12. 12 is the bigger number. 12 was positive. So my final answer is going to be a positive 5. But again, it's good to know the rules. It's good to understand them. But I don't expect you to add everything by hand. So definitely feel free to use a calculator.